"They're hiding something," she said flatly one evening, staring at the flickering security feed. "And whatever it is, it's not legal." The next step was going public. At the monthly HOA board meeting, we showed up prepared. My daughter insisted we keep it calm, professional, and undeniable. We printed screenshots from the surveillance cameras. We compiled timestamps of suspicious patrol patterns, and we drafted a simple statement. Why are unlicensed, uncertified guards patrolling this neighborhood? And why are they trespassing on residents' property? The meeting began as usual. Mundane discussions about landscaping budgets, pool maintenance, and parking complaints. But when we raised our hands, the atmosphere shifted. I stood up first, laying the documents on the table. "We need answers," I said, my voice steady. "These men aren't licensed, they're trespassing, and they're harassing residents. What is the HOA hiding?" The room fell silent. Board members glanced at each other nervously. The president, a polished woman in her 50s with a too-perfect smile, leaned forward. "These are serious accusations," she said smoothly, "but your evidence is circumstantial. Our security team is hired to ensure community safety." That's when my daughter stepped in. Calm, direct, controlled. "I'm an FBI tactical commander," she said, her voice carrying across the room like a blade cutting through glass. "I know what a security operation looks like. This isn't protection, it's surveillance. And unless you can provide documentation for their licenses, contracts, and chain of authority, you're in violation of state law." You could have heard a pin drop. The president's smile faltered for the briefest second. Then she recovered. "We'll look into it," she said curtly. Meeting adjourned, but that wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The very next night, our mailbox was torn open. Not by kids, not by accident, but pried open, contents scattered. Bills missing. Notices are gone. 2 days later, someone keyed my car. Deep, deliberate scratches along the side. And then the worst of it, our cameras went dark. Every single one cut at the wires. They weren't even pretending anymore. "This isn't intimidation," my daughter muttered as she examined the damage. "This is escalation. They want us quiet." But what they didn't understand was that fear doesn't silence someone like her. It fuels her. One evening, she slipped out dressed in plain clothes, blending in like a shadow. She knew their patterns by now. The guards rotated near the clubhouse at exactly 11:30, leaving a narrow gap in coverage. That's when she went to the off-limits lots. What she found shook her. Behind the locked fence, there was more than just dirt and empty space. There was equipment, industrial equipment, generators, heavy drills, and crates covered with tarps. And in the center, a massive concrete slab with a steel hatch built into the ground, a hatch leading down. She barely had time to snap a few photos before headlights swept across the lot. She darted into the shadows, pressing flat against the ground as 2 guards approached. One of them unlocked the hatch. The other carried a case, metal heavy, clinking as it moved. They descended together into the darkness below. By the time she made it back to our house, her pulse was pounding. She laid the photos on the kitchen table, her face grim. "It's not just intimidation," she said. "It's an operation." The following week, things grew worse. We received an official violation notice from the HOA claiming that our cameras were unauthorized modifications and demanding they be removed permanently. When we refused, they fined us. When we didn't pay, they threatened legal action. But beneath the legal threats was something else, an unspoken menace. Guards lingered longer near our home. Board members stopped making eye contact at meetings. Neighbors, once friendly, began avoiding us altogether. It was as if the entire neighborhood had turned against us. Orchestrated from the top. And then came the letter typed. Unsigned, slipped under our door. "Stop digging. Or next time, it won't just be your property that's damaged." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about curiosity or suspicion anymore. We were in danger. My daughter knew they were watching us, so she devised a countermeasure. She reached out to a trusted colleague at the bureau. Not officially, not on record, but as a friend. She shared the photos, the videos, and the threats. The colleague confirmed her fears. What she had stumbled upon resembled a covert smuggling operation. The hatch wasn't random. It was likely an access point to a tunnel system. But without official jurisdiction, they couldn't move on it yet. Not without more evidence. That's when she made the decision. She would go back in. It was past midnight when she geared up. Not in her full tactical gear, just a flashlight, a concealed sidearm, and the nerves of steel that had carried her through countless missions. She timed it perfectly, slipping past the guards during their rotation. The fence was no obstacle. Within seconds, she was at the hatch. The steel groaned as she lifted it, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. A rush of damp air hit her face, carrying the faint stench of oil and earth. Step by step, she descended until the night swallowed her whole. What she found down there would change everything. The tunnel stretched endlessly beneath the neighborhood, lit by dim industrial lamps. Crates lined the walls, unmarked, sealed, guarded by silence. In the distance, she heard voices, men speaking in low tones, machinery rumbling, and then from the shadows, a sound that froze her in place, the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. She wasn't alone. The air in the tunnel was suffocating, thick with the smell of oil, damp concrete, and something else, fear. My daughter's senses sharpened. Every shadow, every echo was a possible threat. She moved slowly, controlled, her flashlight angled low to avoid detection. The voices grew clearer. Men were gathered just ahead, their words bouncing off the concrete walls. Shipment needs to move tonight. HO is covering the perimeter. No mistakes. Shipment. HOA. The pieces clicked together like jagged shards of glass. The security guards weren't security at all. They were the muscle for something far bigger. She edged closer, pressing against the wall, just as one of the men turned abruptly. The beam of a flashlight sliced through the dark, sweeping dangerously close. She ducked, heart steady but fast, hand on her sidearm. Then, click. The metallic snap echoed like thunder in the silence. A gun was already leveled at her head. "Don't move," a voice snarled. It was him, the same guard who had smirked at her in our driveway, the same one who had tried to intimidate her with his hand on his pistol. But now his arrogance was gone. His eyes burned with something uglier, fear. "You don't belong down here," he spat. Calmly, evenly, my daughter replied, "Neither do you." "This isn't security. This is a crime scene," he sneered. "You think your badge means anything here? You're in our neighborhood now." What he didn't realize was that she wasn't here with a badge. She was here with her training, her resolve, and the unshakable knowledge that she was dealing with amateurs who thought they were untouchable. The guard's finger twitched near the trigger. That's when she made her move. With lightning speed, she grabbed his wrist, twisting hard, disarming him in a fluid motion that sent the gun clattering to the ground. Before he could react, she had him pinned against the wall, her voice low and lethal. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." The commotion drew the others. Footsteps thundered through the tunnel, shouts filling the air. Flashlights bobbed closer. She knew she couldn't fight them all, not without backup. But she didn't need to, because while she was inside the tunnel, I was outside. And I had followed her instructions to the letter. As soon as she disappeared through that hatch, I called her colleague at the bureau. I told them everything. And by the time the guards swarmed toward her, the faint echo of sirens was already drifting down into the darkness. She shoved the disarmed guard forward, using him as cover as the others rounded the corner. Shouts turned into panic when the wail of approaching vehicles grew louder, the sound unmistakable even underground. FBI. "Don't move!" The tunnel exploded with chaos. Armed agents stormed in from the far end, tactical lights blinding, commands sharp. The guards froze, their bravado collapsing in an instant. One by one, they dropped their weapons, raising their hands. But the biggest shock wasn't the guards. It was what the agents uncovered as they swept deeper into the tunnel. Crates stacked high, filled with weapons, cash, and unmarked containers. A smuggling route hidden beneath the neighborhood, stretching miles toward the city outskirts. And all of it. Every operation, every illegal shipment protected by the HOA. The board members weren't just corrupt. They were complicit. The security team wasn't hired for protection. They were part of a criminal syndicate using suburban order as their disguise. And at the center of it all was the president of the HOA, the woman with the perfect smile, the polished words and the calm denial at every meeting. When agents dragged her down into the tunnel, handcuffed and furious, her mask finally slipped. Her smile was gone, replaced by venom. "You don't know what you've done," she hissed. "You've ruined everything." But my daughter just looked at her, calm as ever, and said, "No. You ruined it the moment you thought you could threaten my family." The weeks that followed felt surreal. Our once perfect neighborhood was swarming with federal investigators, news vans, and stunned residents who had never suspected that beneath their peaceful cul-de-sacs lay a criminal enterprise. Neighbors whispered in shock, struggling to reconcile the truth. The guards were gone. The board was dismantled. The tunnel was sealed, its existence now evidence in an ongoing investigation. And us? We were left standing in the middle of it all, still trying to breathe. For me, the hardest part wasn't the threats or even the danger. It was realizing how easily power can be abused. The HOA, which was supposed to serve the community, had turned into a weapon of control. They used fear to silence us, intimidation to isolate us, and violence to enforce their secrets. But they underestimated one thing: the wrong family. My daughter never once wavered. She didn't just protect me. She dismantled an entire operation with her courage, her training, and her refusal to be intimidated. Watching her in action, seeing her face down men with guns in the very place we called home, it changed the way I look at her and at the world. There's a lesson here, one I'll never forget. Never assume safety just because something looks perfect on the surface. Corruption hides in plain sight. Evil wears polite smiles. And sometimes the ones who claim to protect you are the ones you need protection from. But there's another lesson too, one about resilience, about the power of standing your ground. We could have backed down. We could have stayed quiet, paid the fines, and ignored the letters. But if we had, the truth would have stayed buried. And maybe, just maybe, that tunnel would still be running under our feet.